So when I'm looking at investing, I'm looking at, if it's an early stage, the founder and what are they trying to do? If it's a later stage and there's revenue available, obviously I'm very keen to look at, what's the revenue that you have? What are all the metrics? Are they sloping upwards and to the right? And there's two other things that I look at that I forgot to mention. One is coachability. Does this founder, are they willing to admit when something's not going right and feedback, seek help? And, I'm not saying to broadcast it to all of humanity. Do not expect the external world to deliver peace and freedom to you. It's not going to happen. It's an inside job.
Okay, okay. Now let me unravel the questions because now you have a depth subject that just goes towards the mindset of people. And maybe my first question would be, what are the most common mindset challenges founders face and how can they overcome them?
I'd say that there's a lot of inner dialogue, putting loads of pressure on themselves. And it's not helpful. It's not helpful. And I want to share something else that I learned that I find very helpful and I share with all my clients. So when we are anxious, and I'm going to ask you this, Shaq, as if you were one of my clients. When you're feeling worried or anxious about something, are you in the past, present, or future?
I'm in the past.
Okay, you're in the past. Where else, when you're worrying, where else can you be?
When I'm worrying, where else can I be?
Yeah, past, present, or future.
Future.
Yeah, you're in the past or the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, next question, where do the past and the future exist?
It doesn't exist.
Well, no, it doesn't, but it exists in our imagination, right? Up in our head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, next question, where does the present exist?
In the mind as well?
Nope.
The present exists here where I am.
How are you interacting with me in the present?
Here.
Yeah, using your body.
Yeah.
Right? So the past and the future exist in our mind, and the present, we use our bodies to access the present. An interesting fact, there are 4 times more neural networks going from our body to our brain than from our brain to our body through our neck. Our bodies are critical to being present. And you just explained that when we're nervous, when we're worried, when we're anxious, we're either in the past or the future, which means we're in our head. So to get into the present and out of anxiety, we connect with our body. That means we connect with our breathing. We rub our fingertips together gently. We feel our fingertips. We sing a song. We go for a walk. We do anything to get ourselves into our bodies. Earlier today, I had on some really peaceful mantras on my Spotify, and I was singing mantras while I was doing my email. And it just helps me stay in my body and relaxed. So many founders feel anxious, and the way out of anxiety is to connect with your body.
Wow. So what role does self-esteem play in navigating mental ups and downs while running a business?
I haven't really thought about that. I think that any founder has got a lot of gumption,
Mhm, mhm.
for lack of a better way to put it, and
Yeah.
probably self-esteem, because being a founder, I mean, it takes courage, right?
Mhm,
Um, so I think self-esteem is critical. And when you're feeling down, when you're feeling low, or that things aren't working, just having the ability to have compassion for yourself and forgive yourself, and
mhm,
then to get back in the present and look at, okay, what's my next best move? What's my next best step?
mhm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's speak about now you in a situation of yourself. How do
Mm.
you handle high pressure as a founder, even when it just comes to making decisions
When it comes to making decisions, um,
as a founder?
well, I'm not a, I mean, I'm a coach. I'm a founder of a coaching company. I'm not a founder of a tech company.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But when I look at the founders that I work with and myself and how I make decisions, when they're really big, scary decisions, I often want to talk with someone about them. I want to, someone to go through my thinking and um, to help me think through a problem. I don't do it on
Mm,
my own. Um,
mm, mm,
and and I also tend to want to sleep on things. Like if an opportunity presents itself this afternoon and it's like, oh my God, this is so exciting. I
mm,
need to just slow down. One of the best ways that we can regulate, so our nervous systems are critical, right?
mm, mm,
And we can be in red, yellow, or green in our nervous system. This is aligned to the polyvagal theory, it's called.
mm,
And if we're in red, we can't think straight. So regulating our nervous system, which involves connecting with our body and just thinking through a problem. Go for a walk. When you have a big decision, go for a walk, talk with a
mm,
friend, sleep on it. Whenever you're feeling the need, whenever you're feeling rushed, that is putting your nervous system into overdrive. I would encourage you, slow down. Whatever you're doing, you're wiping off a table fast, just think about it. That's stressed out. Slow down. Anything you're doing, just slow it down, and you will see that your state of mind will calm down as well, and you will make better decisions. You will have better conversations. Drop your breathing from the top of your chest to your belly. Relax your speech. If I'm talking to you like this, right? I'm
yeah.
stressed out up here. Whereas, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm down here. I'm relaxed. I'm going to make better decisions. It's all one. It all
Mm,
culminates into one thing. And I know that that's kind of a lot in a single question, but
mhm.
I
But
hope
there
that
are
makes,
people who say they work well under pressure. Is there anything like that?
yeah. Well, I mean, and people get addicted to adrenaline. It's
Mhm,
fun, right? We get like, oh my God, yeah, I work well under pressure, and that's great.
mhm,
But biology tells us that working under pressure all the time is not healthy for your body.
mhm,
It's not healthy for your relationships, right?
mhm,
And it's ultimately not going to be healthy, most likely for your decisions, I would argue.
mhm, mhm.
Um,
Okay. Yeah. So I'm a Christian, right? And I will say in situations like that, maybe I'll just say I'll run to God and I will wait for God's guidance.
mm,
Um, how important, or maybe not so important, is spirituality when it comes to just, relaxing and just because there are people who, as you mentioned, they cannot relax so that they get the solutions.
mm,
There are people like me, I will run to God and ask for solution.
mm.
So do you believe spirituality has an aspect? Because for you is mantras, maybe the affirmations.
Yeah.
Does spirituality play a role in just, maintaining our sanity under high pressure?
as human beings, we have a mind, a body, and a spirit. And I tell this to my children all the time. You have a mind, body, and spirit, and you need to nurture all three. However you want to do it, to be a whole human being, you need to be nurturing all those three aspects of yourself. And I would say if you can't relax, your nervous system is in the red zone. You're in overdrive. And that is not sustainable. And you need to make it a priority to figure out what are the resources I have available to be able to relax my nervous system, because I'm driving myself crazy. It's not going to help you be a better founder. Worrying, being stressed out does not make you a better founder. It does not make you more effective, right? So how can you get into a state of calm? And if spirituality is something that is important to you and works for you already, that's wonderful. I would say absolutely, use that. If you don't have some kind of spiritual practice, I would encourage you to take a look at that and consider, what is it that I admire that has a spiritual practice that I might want to listen to. I've myself over the last 2 or 3 years, I've done so much work on myself in terms of studying different spiritual practices and so forth. I took a beginner's course in Buddhism and have read a beautiful book by Pema Chodron, who's a Buddhist nun. And I've done all kinds of spiritual work, and I have daily spiritual practices that keep me grounded, and reminding myself that I have an inner purpose and not just an outer purpose. I am a human being, not just a human doing, right?
Yeah. So you mentioned reading. There are people who believe in audiobooks. There are people who can read, and just actually concentrate. How important is reading when it comes to just maintaining that mental strength and calming down?
I mean, I have books mentioned on my website that I really believe in. The number one book I recommend to my clients that I will share with you is a book by Eckhart Tolle called The Power of Now. And it's all about cultivating presence in one's life. And the first 25 or 30% of the book is a little weird. And you're like, where is this guy going? But it's really an amazing resource for people to learn how to cultivate presence in their lives, which helps you to get out of anxiety. It gets out of the red zone. And reading, I mean, I know for myself, it's, I buy all kinds of different books. And I go through phases. There are phases when, like right now, I'm barely reading at all. Like 2 years ago, I was reading voraciously. So it's like I go through these phases where I read a lot or I read a little. And I would just, tell people to, do what their heart, what their heart calls them to do. But also recognize when you're doing something that is not serving yourself. Like if you're not at peace, if something isn't working, what is the change that you control, right? Because you only control it yourself. What can you do to bring peace into your life? Because I guarantee you, if you are not healing your pain, you are working your pain out on all the people around you. And that is not a service to anyone. And if you want to have a team that will follow you to the end of the earth, you need to be working on yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I still go back to the gurus. The gurus like read, chant 5 books. And at times you're like, my Lord, where am I even finding this time to just read, But as you're saying, you have to find something that is working for you, right? Not to follow how people read 10 to 5, because at times the books don't give you what you want, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You can't
Mhm.
work 16 hours a day and read 5 books a week and get 8 hours of sleep and have some kind of practice that to take care of your body, walking, whatever it is, like some kind of movement, right?
Mm,
We weren't built to do all this. We have our bodies were not built for the 21st century, right? These
mm,
gurus, you know, to me, a lot of times it just feels like additional pressure. If you are doing what you need to do to take care of your mind, your body, and your spirit, you're doing
mm,
your best. And just giving
mm,
yourself peace, compassion for the things that you just really can't do right now. You're not going to be able, like, I'm not going to read 5 books a week right now. And I can
mm,
feel shitty about it. I can feel guilty about it. Or I can just say, you know what? I'm doing pretty well. I'm here on a call with Shaq and we're having a good time. And
mm,
it's okay
mm,
that I'm not reading 5 books a week. I
mm,
can forgive myself for that. It's not written on some tablet somewhere that, God decreed that I have to read 5 books a week or whatever, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And these gurus, I mean, I think we need to remember that our work is not our religion.
Mm,
We've kind of somehow forgotten, a lot of people have forgotten religion and spirituality, and it's been replaced by work. And we worship our work. That is not healthy.
mm,
It's not
mm,
healthy.
mm.
You can have
So,
work. Yeah.
uh yeah, I mean, from the way I'm feeling, you've really worked on yourself internally, that outside forces and factors don't navigate you towards certain directions. So, what is it that difference that you've done internally that is shaping you to navigate the way you want? Because you're speaking from a point of lots of confidence. At times, as young entrepreneurs, you're like, oh, my mentor said this, I need to do this, and then I'll get this results. But oftentimes, you don't get that result still because it's
Yeah.
not coming from you internally.
I have done so many different things, Shaq.
Mm,
To and I will be honest here, to grieve my marriage. I went through a lot, a lot.
mm,
And but I would argue that for at least for me, it would involved just allowing myself to feel all the pain that I needed to feel and get it out, right? Rather
mm,
than internalize it and suppress it, which, that just causes problems and illness, right?
mm,
Um, but I had a meditation practice, and when I was going through the worst of it, there were times when I would just lay on the bathroom floor and wait until I had some energy.
mm,
And that was the best that I could do. Because, people need to remember, some days our best is better than others, right?
yeah.
And some days, we have the energy to be able to do, let's say, 100, right? And other days our best might just be 10 because we just don't have the energy. And to have compassion for ourselves and say, it's okay. And each
Mm,
week, if I'm making 2% progress each week, that compounding of progress,
mm,
it's you look up compound interest, everybody wants that compound interest in their lives.
yeah.
And so just wherever you are in terms of, your ability to regulate yourself, the ability to respond to people rather than reacting, right?
Mm, mm,
Wherever you are, recognizing, having the self-awareness to recognize where you are and then look at where you want to be. Wow, that person that I know, they are unflappable. I really want to become able to control myself like that, to be able to feel my emotions inside, but not vomit them on other people in the moment,
mm,
and to be able to express what I'm feeling in a healthy way that doesn't just project pain on other people. That's important work. That's life's work. And it's not just work for
mm.
founders, it's work for everybody. And yeah.
I mean, first of all, sorry for that situation that happened because you're glowing. It's not even written on your face. You're really glowing. So, I mean, not someone can pick it up. So sorry about that, but keep shining. Because
Thank you.
I remember the first time I saw you from the videos, I think it's the LinkedIn Reels. That's where I first saw you. And I was like, wow, this madam is really glowing, and the information is also deep. Let me just try and reach out and see if we can have a conversation. And gladly, you responded to me. So keep the glow. The glow is working. It's
Thank you.
not there. No one can notice anything. And it's a good thing the way you handle it, because even this will now show other people who may be in the same situations that they can actually still come out. Because you mentioned you could even lay down in the bathroom, it was really tough.
Yeah.
And after 1 year, you've gotten your vibrance back. You're glowing. We can see you, we can notice you, we can listen to your message. I mean, kudos, tremendous. Keep
Thank
up.
you. I can see back at you, Shaq. You're glowing too.
For me, it's lights, but thank you. Yeah. So maybe I want to touch about emotional intelligence
Hmm.
in leadership. How can
Hmm.
founders strengthen their emotional intelligence?
Repeat the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I want to speak about emotional intelligence. How can founders strengthen their emotional
Yeah,
intelligence?
right. So, such an important question. And, especially as AI becomes a thing, our
Mm,
humanity, our emotional intelligence becomes more valuable than ever because
mm,
all of our, analytical thinking, let's say, computers can do that. AI can do that.
yeah.
AI can't do emotion. And so cultivating that is really a skill that is important. And you can see emotionally intelligent leaders, how compelling they are to their teams and how much their teams appreciate their ability to be with them when, as a listener, as a guide, as an advisor. Um,
Mm,
how to cultivate it, I would say it starts with yourself, right? Are you
mm,
able to be with your own emotions, right? When you're feeling something difficult, our emotions start in our body. They don't
mm,
start in our head. Our head interprets them and they become feelings. Our emotions start in our body. So if you're feeling angry, for example, if you can just pause, close your eyes, and locate that anger in your body and just allow it to amplify. Just allow it to be as big and as, hot and as it needs to be in your body. And just sit with it. You will notice that it will last a maximum of like 2 minutes
mm,
and then it will pass like a wave in the ocean, right?
yeah.
But if we don't allow ourselves to feel that anger fully, it's going to fester. And just think of trying to keep a lid on an ocean. Doesn't work, right? That
Mm,
ocean, emotions are energy in motion. It needs to flow. We need to allow ourselves to feel it. And what happens is we don't want to feel things like grief. We don't want to
mm,
feel sadness. We don't want to feel failure. We don't want to feel all these emotions that we associate with negativity. But if we have the the presence of mind to recognize I'm feeling guilty right now,
mm,
right? And
mm,
guilt, I did something wrong, right? And I'm going to sit with that guilt and I'm going to, how do I want to repair this? Because guilt is an indicator that we did something wrong and we need to fix it, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Not just ignore it. We need to fix it. So if we can sit with that emotion, the sadness, where do I feel the sadness in my body? I went to my doctor 2 or 3 weeks ago and she was going on a big trip. And but I knew that she was supposed to have gone on a big trip and her nurse came in to see me before she came in. And her nurse told me, I need to ask you to please not ask about her trip because she didn't go because her husband passed away suddenly due to a heart attack
Mm,
just before the trip and she didn't go. And I was really, it was very unexpected. I was surprised.
Mhm.
And she came in and we talked, and she talked about how she didn't know what to do. She just was working all the time because she didn't know how to. She said, I just, she basically wanted to die. She didn't know how to sit with all this pain.
Mhm.
And um and she's an entrepreneur. She has a very successful business. And my advice to her was, you take it one day at a time. You don't look a year from now, 2 years from now. You take it one day, 1 minute at a time, and you just be present in that 1 minute. And you're going to need to sit and you're going to need to feel all this pain, so that you can get past it. Because if you try to avoid it by just working, it's going to be
Mhm.
it's going to be waiting for you around the corner when you're in a quiet place by yourself and you're not working. It's going to pop up and it's going to haunt you.
Wow.
So I use that as an example because cultivating emotional intelligence means just having the willingness to sit with the uncomfortable emotions that might be there. And you know what? I would invite your listeners. There's two wonderful Disney movies on this topic, which
Mhm.
are Inside Out 1 and Inside Out 2. They're
Mhm.
wonderful movies. I assign them as homework to my clients sometimes. And there's
Mhm.
lots of wisdom in. And we don't need to be scared of our emotions. So often we're scared to feel these big emotions. And but they're not going to hurt us. If we can just make peace with the fact that, you know, I need to feel some pain right now. And I'm willing to feel that pain so that I don't suffer, right?
Yeah.
Pain
It,
is inevitable, suffering is optional.
mhm. When it comes to, maybe let's touch about, let's say, relationship and love,
Mm,
those moments where maybe a founder is going through a heartbreak, a terrible heartbreak because of
mm,
love, it's the
yeah.
spouse, the partner, or even when they're trying to run a business and the spouse or maybe the partner is just not supportive. How are
Mm.
they, how will they, or how can they be able just to manage the business and the roller coaster of relationship emotions?
That's a big question, Shaq.
Maybe I might be going through it.
How do I successfully navigate a business and a relationship? Well, let's see if I can give you an answer in 30 seconds or less. Um, I, you know, some people are so focused on their work and they completely forget and neglect their relationship. And at some point, their partner makes it clear that they're done. And suddenly they realize, oh, wait a second, I didn't, wait. I completely forgot to attend to my relationship here because I was so busy working.
Yeah.
Um, in a relationship, I don't, you know, relationships are a container for growth.
Mm-hmm.
And we either grow in our relationship or we terminate it.
Mm-hmm.
And most divorces happen just at the moment of exponential potential growth because growth is so uncomfortable. And we can grow through pain or we can grow through joy. We can do it reactively
Mm-hmm.
because we're forced to, or because we choose to. Because, like you said at the beginning of this podcast, we're all about learning and growing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if you're concerned about your relationship, check in with your partner. There's a podcast I listen to, and the podcaster, John Deloney, he says, he recommends his listeners to ask their partner, how can I best love you today? Ask your
Mm-hmm.
partner, how can I best love you today? Care about how they feel. Check in with them. It was funny. I had a call with this one, it was a chemistry call with a potential client. And it's a man who's CEO of a startup. And he does turnarounds. So he's this really, tough turnaround guy that, private equity and VCs hire to go in and, turn a company around. And he comes across as very, very like hard and analytical and, and he was having a call with me because he said, I'm really terrified because all of my friends, he's like probably he's got 3 kids, the youngest is 17, and he's probably early 50s. And he said, all of my friends, without exception, have gotten divorced once they become empty nesters. Their wives have declared, I'm done, served divorce papers, they're gone. And he said, and I'm really worried that this is going to happen when my youngest graduates from high school and goes off to college. And we talked about it, and he said, he was talking about this, and I said, well, what do you think, what do you think your wife would say about your marriage? And he was like, ugh. And I said, well, why don't you just ask her on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you in our relationship? How healthy do you think our marriage is? And he was like, oh, no, I can't possibly ask her that. And I'm like, sweetheart, you're telling me you've been married for what, like 25 years? And you don't care enough about your relationship to ask your wife if she's happy?
Mhm.
I can guarantee you the woman is not happy.
It's not. They
I
don't
mean,
know.
of course she's not happy.
Uh,
Her husband is unwilling to ask her if she's happy. How could she possibly be happy? I mean, and again, it requires some vulnerability from him and a lot of courage, right?
yeah.
And what's interesting is he comes across as this very strong, confident, turnaround guy. And here he is, this frightened little boy when it comes to asking his wife about the state of his relationship. So I would ask you, is that a strong man? Is
Not
that a
really.
is that a courageous man? Because society will tell us he's got it made.
Mm,
He's successful, he's got money, he's got it made. Maybe, but I would argue that at some point this man is increasingly scared that the things that are the most important to him are the most at risk and he can't control it. But he could nurture it if he chose to, but it would
mm.
require invulnerability. And I will tell you, he did not hire me as a coach. So
Yeah.
I hope he hired somebody as a coach, but he didn't hire me.
I mean, people think navigating a relationship is how they know it, without seeking external advice or knowledge. Doesn't apply to relationships, only maybe applies to businesses. So maybe how important is it to, as you come to an, how important is it to, you know, business spouses or even just normal spouses to have that external voice adding up into their relationship?
Um, I think it depends on the individual, but I mean, personally, I feel, Aristotle said, know thyself, right?
Mm, mm,
And you cannot be in a healthy relationship with someone else if you are not in love with yourself, right? You
mm.
need to be able to let, RuPaul says that, right? If
Yeah,
you don't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love anybody else?
yeah, yeah.
Um, and, when it's important to recognize when you're struggling, right?
Mm,
And to know that there are people that have been through this that can give you guidance. And you can try to do it all on your own and not read any books and kind
mm,
of like live, grow in some kind of isolation.
yeah.
But I would argue that at some point or another, whether it's a book or a podcast or a coach or a psychologist, someone, it's important to recognize when you're ready to level up. I remember when this was back in, I'd say around 2007. And I had this eureka moment one day when I realized that I was encountering similar problems repeatedly in my life with different people.
Mhm,
And I got really annoyed because I realized the only common denominator was me.
mhm,
And but also once I realized that, oh, I'm causing this, it gave me the realization that I could control this. I could create a different outcome from myself if I could figure out what I was doing to create these scenarios with all these different people that were very similar. So, having the willingness to introspect, the willingness to be really, really honest with yourself. When there's something that goes wrong, am I willing to repair and be accountable? Am I willing, even if it's 2% of responsibility, am I willing to take that 2% of responsibility and say, I did this? Yes. And, I also experienced this, from the other party. There's a wonderful resource that I would like to share as well, which is when Satya Nadella became CEO of Microsoft. Microsoft was in very bad shape. And there was a really good article written about this in a magazine called Vanity Fair, and it was called Microsoft's Lost Decade. It was published before Satya Nadella became CEO with the previous CEO in charge, and Microsoft was not doing well. And when Satya Nadella became CEO, his first meeting with his leadership team, he gave each one of them a book. And the book was a book on nonviolent communication. Nonviolent communication is how he declared they were going to transform the culture of Microsoft and make it safe for teams to collaborate. And that is the only way that you can get innovation, is when people feel safe to make mistakes, to fail, to communicate, to express ideas. And I would say that's another wonderful book for your founders to read, is Nonviolent Communication, is if they have teams and they want to learn how to do this within their teams.
Wow. The nonviolent communication, that's very new. That's very, very new. Because from the look of things, even the body language can be giving a different communication, right?
It's a wonderful resource, and there's lots of YouTube videos about it as well.
Okay. So if Patricia was to be given an advice earlier on managing mental challenges of being an entrepreneur, founder, investor, what advice do you think would be the best for you?
That I can only control myself, and that in any relationship, the Chinese have a saying, which is that it takes two hands to clap. So me over functioning in a relationship is not going to make it work. It takes two people to make a relationship work. And that goes for any relationship, with a romantic partner, with a co-founder, with an employee, with an investor. I can manage my side of the equation and do that to the best of my ability. But I cannot control the other party.
Okay, now maybe the last question. The last one. Now for our founders, yeah, and the entrepreneurs, how can they stay motivated despite challenges and setbacks? How can they keep the fire burning?
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, right?
Yeah.
And that we need to feel our emotions if they're going to pass. If we don't allow ourselves to feel our emotions, they fester. We repress them, we stuff them down. And when we have a setback, we need to allow ourselves to feel the weight of that setback so that it can pass like a wave in the ocean. And what you'll notice is once that, let's say it's sadness or grief, I had a setback, I'm really sad. I allow myself to feel that sadness fully. Maybe I cry about it, whatever, but I allow myself to process that emotion. What will happen is it will dissipate. it will go away and something new will come in behind it. Some kind of optimism or possibility or an idea or joy, whatever it is. But the critical component is allowing yourself to feel whatever is true. And your intention and your goal doesn't shift, but you're allowing yourself to surf the emotional journey of being a founder rather than just trying to go through it and not feel anything. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. So many times as founders, we just want to.
Yeah, you don't want to feel it. I get it. You're busy. You're like, I don't have time to feel this. I had a call with a client yesterday and he started a new job. He's a professional. He's in this big new job and he's doing incredibly well. And his grandfather died about 2 weeks ago. And he hadn't mentioned his grandfather. And at one point during the call, I mentioned his grandfather. I said, how's that going? And he said, oh, I haven't taken the time to grieve. I don't have time for that. And I was like, that's really interesting. And men in particular are very good at compartmentalizing. He said, he said, I've just kind of put it to the side and I don't have time to deal with that right now. And I was like, well, that's very interesting. I can sense a lot of resistance, but I can tell you this is not going to go away until you deal with it. And so his homework was to write his grandfather a letter and to do some sort of ceremony to either burn the letter or, some sort of prayer to his grandfather and express whatever was real about that relationship, whatever might have been unsaid. And yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
Wow. As human beings, we really go through so many unique, so many unique situations. And I don't know if it gets to a point where even you, Patricia, is just a coach, and you're like, this is so much outside this world, even as founders, maybe, some situations you're like, you will never even imagine someone will be in that situation, right? But this is the world we are living in.
Yeah. I mean, all kinds of things happen. And, the willingness to surf that, right? Rather than try to bulldoze through it and say, I'm going to just ignore everything to my right and to my left, and I'm just going to bulldoze through this and ignore everything, that's going on inside me. No, we have a relationship with what's inside us. And the healthiest individuals are actually able to feel what they need to feel and then move forward in a healthy way and give themselves some grace, forgiveness, and compassion, and a lot of love.
Yeah, love is all we're craving for. Love runs the world. Wow, what a best, what a, this is tremendous. Actually, this is the best way to end it, with love. And people, if they don't take anything out of all this podcast recording, at least they should go with love,
I agree.
because love runs the world. Thank you so much, Patricia. Where can people find you? For me, I know how I can maneuver and access you. Where can people actually find you?
My website is thenextbeststep.net. And then I'm at Patricia Reed. My name is Patricia Reed, and I'm based in Singapore. You can find me on LinkedIn.
I've seen you also on YouTube. You've been also to CNBC.
Oh yeah, you saw that. That was a few years ago. Yeah, that's not in my capacity as a coach, but yeah, I've been on CNBC and I was actually even on BBC once. That was terrifying.
Why? Why terrifying? What happened?
The journalist was so scary. Oh my gosh, he wasn't at all like you, Shaq.
And to many more, like this one's actually, right?
Yeah, no, you're way nicer to talk to.
Yeah, congratulations being on such huge platforms that make actually a difference. And I believe one day our youth mentors and VCs will be on the road, different countries. We'll just be able to just fly you in and come and pour out knowledge that you've poured out for our audience today, and even me as a person. So thank you so much, Patricia. This will be coming out very soon, and I hope we'll have many Singaporeans joining our platform and just sharing their knowledge as well. And also, I'm looking forward you coming to our country and to go to more safaris and wherever place in this continent of Africa, just to do many impactful things, and also just to enjoy and have fun and relax and ease ourselves as you've advised us, right?
Thank you. Yeah, I went once to Kenya and it was a wonderful trip and my children loved it. And the Kenyans just so nice to my children. When you're traveling as a family, you really care how your children are treated, if they're treated like, oh my God, or if they're really, and it was a wonderful.
Amazing. All right, as we finish, I want to thank our sponsors again, Brand Rico More, Brand Allo, and also our school in Kenya that you are supporting, Profina School. Go support them. Even just your presence, people will go and visit them. That's enough. Buy books for them, food, whatever, and God will bless you. Up to the next episode. See you again. Ciao, ciao.